returned from a trip to the west coast of Vancouver Island. We got a few spring salmon, and we lucked into one good-sized halibut. And I'm going to show you guys the different muscle groups and how to break it up, and then we'll just show you a little bit about how to preserve the catch as well in vacuum bags. So check it out. All right. So this halibut, he's about 114 centimeters on the coast of British Columbia. The maximum size limit you're allowed to keep is 115 centimeters. So we had to measure him 3 times to be sure, and he's actually about 113, 114. So we're happy about that. Now we had to cut his tail off to get him in the cooler. I left his head on because I actually quite like there's the cheeks in here that I want to take off. But first I want to do is take these fillets off. Obviously he's too big to freeze whole, and so we're going to break them up into smaller meal-sized pieces and then backpack each piece. So the first thing I do is so I'll just show you a little bit about the anatomy. So they have a lateral line that runs down here, and they have the dorsal line that runs over here, and of course their belly here. There's actually 4 fillets on a halibut. So there's 1 fillet here, 1 fillet over here, and then I also have 2 fillets on the other side, which when I flip them over, we'll look at those. Interesting fact about a halibut, it's actually born with eyes on either side of the fish, and because it lays flat on the ground, this eye actually migrates over and turns up on top of the on the top side of the fish because it lays flat. You'll also notice that on the other side, you'll see it's a white. On this side, it's gray and camouflaged, and then on the other side, which is the stomach or the side that sits down against the sand, it's bright white. All right, so my first cut, I'm just going to go in behind the collar and cut find just where the bone ends, and then run my knife. What I like to say to people when they're doing butchering is that always sort of feel with your finger first. Don't cut your finger, and just find where the end of that cartilage, the back of the collar, is, and then run your knife down and around and you'll eventually hit the back of his neck here and the top of his spine. So that's that's one end of your cut there. So I've just kind of created a landmark there. The next cut I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to run down this lateral line. It's actually marked out for you. You can see there's actually a line right down it, which is actually going to, if you go straight down that line, you'll actually be hitting sort of the part of his spine there. And what I kind of do, I'll sort of start the cut out, just scoring the skin, and then I'll kind of go down and hit the bone. Right. So I've gone right down until I hit the bone or the spine down the middle of him here. The next cut I'm going to do is I'm going to start working this fillet off from the inside out towards his spine. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put my knife in and drop down to the spine, and I'm going to run my knife along that back spine. And when we get this fillet off, it'll be really obvious. They're quite easy to fillet, actually. They're just kind of big. So I'm just running my knife. The knife's on a bit of an edge, kind of pointing down towards the bones and pushing out and away. This is skin at the end there, a little bit tough. So that's one fillet there, one beautiful fillet. So you can really get a look at him here. You can see where that's the center of the spine is here, and then you can see the spine bones. And I just follow those spine bones down and out on the fish. Now I get this beautiful fillet. You can see here, this is where we harpooned him, which is if you're gonna harpoon a halibut, don't hit him right through the nice fillets here. Try and put the harpoon through his stomach cavity, and that way you don't bust up a nice fillet there. All right, so I'm going to do the other side, the bottom side. Now, it's a little easier. Like that first fillet is really easy because I'm right-handed, and it's easier for me to do that with my right hand working my way over. So I have to do this one kind of the opposite way. I'll try. And then I get up to here, and I'm going to kind of cut in behind his cheek there. I always wear rain gear when I do this because inevitably you're going to get covered in halibut slime. And just peeling that fillet off, following the rib bones. Now, if you miss it a little bit, like it's not a big deal, eh? Because you can scrape off this back strap here or the backbone with a spoon, and everything you collect from the spoon, it'll be beautiful halibut meat, and you can turn that into fish cakes. It's lovely. So
particularly a halibut of this size, it's going to have a really nice cheek muscle in here that's just quite nice to eat. And to figure out where it is, you can actually feel where his head bone is, or his jaw bone is, and you can feel where there's a bit of soft meat in there. So feel around with your fingers, and then you want to drop the knife in just on the edge of where the collar is, or where the I should say the head bone and the jaw, and just follow around the edge of it with your knife. I'll just pop it out now. I'm gonna get pretty close here. Now I didn't really want to take the eyeball with me, but that's just I'll just cut that away. Oops, not totally pretty. All right, and then with this guy, I'll also just, while I'm at it, I might as well just fillet off the outside of the skin, so you get this really nice little fillet. Just trim that up, but yeah, these are really wonderful to eat. We'll probably have these just on butter right now while we're cutting fish for the evening. Okay. I'll also do something with this collar here. This collar's got lots of fat and lots of meat in it, so I'll go ahead and cut it off. I need probably a bigger knife for this, but we'll probably just barbecue that as well for something to eat. Now this head and everything like that in the back strap, I ended up just boiling it in water and turning it into stock. That's one of my favorites, halibut stock. So I just flipped them over. You can see that white side. This is the underside of the halibut. The side that doesn't see any light doesn't need to be camouflaged either, because it's laying with its belly down in the sand. So again, there's just 2 more fillets to come off here. Same program as before. I'll start with my sort of landmark cut in behind his neck here and down around his collar. And then I'm just going to run my knife right down that line. I can score it first, or if my knife's nice and sharp, I'll go right down to the bone. I'm gonna have to score it here. My knife's not quite as sharp as it was. That's fine. Now these fillets are pretty heavy, so don't drop them on the ground here as you get to the end. So this is your halibut deconstructed. There's the tail bit that'll go into the soup pot, a couple of halibut cheeks, the 4 fillets, a couple collars for the barbecue, and then the rib meat here and the head, which has still got a lot of meat on it, so that'll go in the soup pot and it'll make great soup and stock. And then I'm going to see this here. This is the belly flap, and I mean there's a little bit of meat here. You can see that, except you have to fillet off this skin, and then you eventually have to fillet off the outside skin. So this is the inside stomach wall. So what I do for this one, I'll turn this into what I'll do is I'll go ahead and cut this like here, and I'll throw this into a backpack and seal it. And then when I'm doing a meal, like maybe I'm gonna do a curry or a light curry, or maybe I just want to have little fish chunks to fry up for tacos, I'm gonna fillet this off, and I'm gonna fillet the backside off, and then cut it into cubes for tacos or whatever I'm gonna do. I don't take this off right now because this actually protects the skin, protects the fish when it freezes. So I'll just go ahead and put that aside, and I'll fiddle with that when I take it out of the freezer later. So for the rest of this guy here, I'm gonna start cutting it up into sort of meal-sized pieces. So for me, it's a meal for 2. So that's a pretty big chunk of halibut there. That's probably about a halibut for 2 piece there. And I'll go ahead and freeze them like this. Now I leave the skin on again just because it protects the freezer. When I'm ready to cook it in a frying pan, I'll go ahead and I'll just show you one. I'll just cut straight down to the hide, the skin, and I'll just fillet it off one side. That's now a nice piece of halibut for the frying pan. Here's another one. And if I was actually pan frying this up for a meal, I'd probably cut that again, because you want it to be, no more than 1 inch thick when you're trying to cook it, so you can fry it in a pan, or you could put it on the barbecue if you want. So that, to me, that's a nice meal there for a couple people. Maybe even cut that in half there too. But I'll leave it together for now, and I'll backpack that together. All right, it's all ready to go for the vacuum sealer. We've just loaded these the pieces of halibut into these backpack bags. I always roll the edge over just to keep any of the slime off the edge. That's your seal edge here, so I can fold it back, and then now it's going to be ready to seal. Now my buddy just bought this fancy backpacker. Remains to be seen if it's worth its weight yet, but slide it in here. This would be great for up to a year, I guess. I mean, I still like to eat my fish within the first few months of catching it because it's much better when it's super fresh. But this will have a much longer freezer life, and now we've got another like 150 of these to go. So better get to work.